There are stories that never make the front page of the newspaper. Stories that are whispered markets, cried out in lonely huts, and buried deep in the hearts of women who carry more pain than they deserve. Tonight, we step into one of those stories. The story of Adaeze, a young widow caught between tradition, greed, corruption, and her desperate fight to keep her children. But pause here and think about this for a moment. In a world that celebrates marriage with loud music and dancing, why is it that widowhood is often greeted with silence, suspicion, and cruelty? It was a humid morning in the small town of Abalo, nestled between the thick forests of eastern Nigeria and the oil-stained creeks of the south. The roosters had barely finished crowing when the news spread. Chike is dead. Chike, Adaeze's husband, was only 38, a man with laughter in his voice and grease on his hands, fixing motorcycles to feed his family. His death came sudden. A bad cough that grew into something no hospital cared enough to treat without money up front. When Adaeze wailed, the earth seemed to tremble with her. But even before her tears dried, shadows began to gather. Not the shadows of comfort, but of vultures. Her husband's brothers arrived, their eyes not on the coffin, but on the small house Chike had built with his sweat. One leaned against the doorway and whispered, "Tradition is clear. A woman cannot inherit land. She must go back to her father's house." But Adaeze looked at her children, Nena, just 10, and little Keen, barely 6, and she knew she had no father's house to run to. Her father was long gone, and her mother's hut had collapsed years ago. Her only home was this house, and now even that was under siege. In Igbo land, widowhood is not just about losing a husband. It is about enduring rituals meant to prove innocence. They shaved Adaeze's head bald. They made her sit on the bare floor, dressed in rags. She was forbidden from bathing for days. Each morning, they brought her before the elders, demanding she swear she had no hand in Chike's death. One elder, his voice gravelly, spat, "If you are truly innocent, drink this water used to wash his corpse. If you die, we will know you killed him. If you live, perhaps you are clean." Adaeze trembled. The bowl was pushed before her. Her children cried out, clinging to her legs. She lifted her eyes, wet and red, and whispered, "God sees me." Then she drank. The crowd gasped, but she lived. Still, that was not enough. Her in-laws began to strip her of property. They took Chike's motorcycle, claiming it belonged to the family. They seized his tools, his clothes, even the mattress from the small bedroom. By the third week, Adaeze and her children slept on a mat in the corner, their stomachs hollow with hunger. And here, I want you to ask yourself, what kind of society measures a widow's worth not by her years of sacrifice, but by her usefulness to the men who surround her? How can grief turn into a courtroom where the verdict is always against the woman? When Adaeze could no longer bear the torment, she fled with her children to Port Harcourt, the bustling city in southern Nigeria. There, she found a job washing dishes in Ebuka. The owner, Mama Ibier, was a stout woman with sharp eyes but a soft heart. She took pity on Adaeze, giving her food at night and letting the children sleep in a corner of the kitchen. But even in the city, Adaeze's battles followed her. One evening, as she walked home through the crowded streets, 2 of her brothers-in-law appeared. "You cannot hide," they warned. "That land belongs to us. If you don't release it, we will take your children too." Fear pierced her heart, but anger gave her strength. She shouted back, "Over my dead body! These children are mine. You will not touch them." They laughed and disappeared into the night, but their threat lingered like smoke. Desperate, Adaeze sought help from the local council. She sat before men in long white robes, hoping for justice. But justice has a price. One leaned forward, smirking. "Widow, do you have money for cola? Do you have anything to give for us to hear your case?" Adaeze's hands were empty. She bowed her head, her tears falling silently. The council dismissed her, and so silence swallowed her cry for help. Think about this. A woman loses her husband, loses her property, and now, even the gatekeepers of justice demand payment before they listen. Where then does she turn? Where does she go? In the midst of her storm, Adaeze found unexpected kindness. Mama Ibier's son, Tamuno, was a young teacher. He noticed Nena's sharp mind and began tutoring her for free. He bought Kina's small slate to practice writing. For the first time in months, Adaeze smiled. Hope, like a flicker of light, began to return, but light always attracts darkness. One night, her in-laws returned, this time with policemen. They accused her of stealing family property and bribed the officers with cash. Adaeze was dragged to the station, her children screaming behind her. She spent 3 nights in a filthy cell, surrounded by the stench of sweat and despair. Her crime? Being a widow without protection. News of her arrest spread through the community. Women from the market, led by Mama Ibier, stormed the police station, chanting songs of protest. Free the widow! Free the widow! They cried. Embarrassed by the noise, the police released Adaeze. For the first time, her voice was no longer alone. Others had joined her. She stood before the crowd, her bald head covered with a scarf, her face thin but determined. She raised her hand and said, "They may take everything from me, but they will not take my children, and I will not be silent anymore." The women cheered. Months passed. Adaeze never regained her husband's land. The council never reversed their judgment. The system never changed. But Adaeze survived. She continued working in Mama Ibier's kitchen. Nena earned a scholarship through Tamuno's help. Keen grew strong and curious, always asking questions. Adaeze's scars remained, visible and invisible, but she walked with her head high, knowing she had kept her children safe. The village remembered her not as the woman who lost everything, but as the widow who refused to bow to silence. And so we must ask ourselves, how many more Adaezes are out there, crying in silence, crushed under traditions that should have protected them? How many widows sleep tonight on empty mats, while their in-laws enjoy the fruits of another man's labor? Behind every statistic is a story. Behind every silence is a cry. Will you hear it, or will you too turn away?